atheism is a religion too. And those people are the worst. You remember Brian Griffin back in Quahog? Remember what an insufferable D-bag he was about it?
Well, hello, you wayward sinners. I guess it's come to this. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy. Or more specifically, that one episode, Not All Dogs Go to Heaven, which many consider the first truly bad Family Guy episode. Back before we had all the hated episodes like Seahorse Seashell Party or Screams of Silence, we all hated this one. And it's pretty much when people started hating Brian. Heck, have you ever watched shows where, like, everybody hates one episode? Like, this would be the Family Guy equivalent to One Course Meal. When I reviewed Stewie is Insanity, I said that part of my criteria for evaluating if an episode is bad or not is how salvageable it is. That's why I didn't like that one particular episode, as the only thing I guess you could do to salvage it is by having Stewie adopt a baby, rather than giving birth to it. And if an episode is bad but highly salvageable, that's worse for me, because it could have been so much better, but why did they pick that one path? Not All Dogs Go to Heaven falls into this mindset. Now, believe it or not, Brian is based off of Seth MacFarlane. After a certain point, he started to be based off of Seth MacFarlane. His liberal viewpoints, his love of classical things, the fact Brian is the only character he uses his natural voice for, how he can't land a woman, and most infamously, his atheism. Now, I have no problem if you're an atheist, or what your religious preferences are. Let me just prefix this by saying this, because I don't want to get accused of anything. I only have a problem if you use your religion as an excuse to be a bad person, or to enforce your viewpoints on others. I might disagree with you on certain things, but that's a different story. To get it out of the way, for those of you who are asking, I for one am an agnostic, meaning I'm not confused and need to pick a side, like Life of Pi said. I just don't know, and there's better things to worry about. However, I will say, it's one thing to insert your religious beliefs into a show, if only because religion is one of those things where you can really tell how people feel about it by how they portray it. Same goes for critics. Like South Park, Family Guy eventually became a chasm for Seth's beliefs. But unlike South Park, which sometimes humors their critics or makes fun of everybody equally, Family Guy almost always goes out of their way to make their detractors seem like the greatest extreme possible. And Not All Dogs Go to Heaven is a good example of that. Heck, kind of like Ida, they also do it to the people they're trying to help and support, which doesn't help their point. So again, much like South Park, where even if you're being mocked, you can either see their point or laugh at their jokes, with Family Guy, it feels like either they don't know what they're talking about, or they just assume we'll all universally agree, so they don't do any actual work, which makes it seem like they're talking down to us or creates a bunch of unfortunate implications. So let's discuss and see why this episode deserves to be hated. The episode starts off at the Quahog Star Trek convention, and I should get this out of the way, Seth MacFarlane is a huge Trekkie in real life, hence the Orville being a love letter to Star Trek. And also that one episode where Roger becomes Orville. I don't know if that's his name, it's just, I only watched episode 1. So I guess that explains a lot. Maybe it explains why Nana Visitor is such a frequent guest star, even if I don't think she's actually in this episode.
The annual Quahog Star Trek convention, where once a year sci-fi buffs take their lips off the barrel of a loaded gun and spend half a day adjusting their eyes to sunlight.
Oh. Okay then. But as a con goer, we don't own guns that aren't made out of styrofoam, prop stuff, like a prop movie, or cardboard. Too expensive. We're saving that money for the con. The whole family has gone to the event, including Brian and Stewie.
I purchased authentic blueprints to build a Star Trek transporter.
Well, that's great, Stewie. You should get William Shatner to sign them for you.
No way, I'm getting Patrick Stewart to sign it.
If it makes you feel any better, I know a couple of people who work closely with Shatner. I'm not gonna give away names because I don't want to dox them. And per them, he's a pretty nice guy who's mellowed out over the years. And apparently for him, cons are a part-time job. Like, he'll go to a con on Friday, take a plane and go to another on Saturday, and then take another plane and go on Sunday, and then he'll go home, and that'll be his whole weekend. Honestly, that's dedication right there. The one Griffin who isn't thrilled to be there is Meg.
Dad, this is stupid. I'm so bored. How can you be bored? This convention has everything.
That's odd. I figured Lois would be the con mom who doesn't want to be there but has to support her kids. Kinda like she was with Kiss. Meg, if you don't like it, just go to the quiet room. I've gotten so much work done in the quiet room. In the craft room, Stewie goes to a panel hosted by the stars of Star Trek The Next Generation. Wait, so there's a difference between normal Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation? Sorry, I know nothing about Star Trek. I guess that's why my spell check keeps converting it to Star Wars. So is Star Trek The Next Generation like a reboot by the same people? Is it by like different people? Is it like a sequel show? If somebody could explain down below, that would be great, because I have no clue where to start. After the panel, the cast does a Q&A, but because they don't have an MC or one of those big microphone stands in the center of the room, they just call out people grade school style, and none of the people actually ask cool questions. Just stupid, boring ones they could Google. And none of the cast tell them to rephrase it or something.
I have this itch on the back of my leg, and I can't figure out if it's a bug bite or dry skin.
Do you take hot showers?
Yes.
Dry skin.
Thanks.
Oh my god, this is worse than Fan Expo.
Thoroughly wring out your sponges after every usage. This will prevent the accumulation of grime and bacteria. A dry sponge is a happy sponge.
Aw, thanks. Viewers who watch my videos while washing the dishes, sorry, that's typically when I watch video essays, especially Review to Death and Fundy Fridays, listen to what he says.
I would check the point first before repriming it. But remember that the summer months take a particular toll on any region's aquifer, depending on the local climate.
Maybe not to that, because I don't know what any of that means. Stewie doesn't get the chance to answer his question, and he vows he'll get it answered, whatever it takes. Peter is talking to a few people when he notices a guy with cool makeup. Wow, he must have used a lot of latex. I wonder what time he woke up to do all that. 5 a.m.? And Peter forces Meg to take a picture with him.
No, Dad, I don't want to.
Come on, it'll be funny. What a wonderful novelty photo this will make.
Because Peter, he doesn't know the biggest rule of con-going. Cosplay does not equal consent, and that goes both ways. If somebody doesn't want to take a picture, move on.
It's not a mask. I have the mumps.
What? You came to a Star Trek convention with the mumps? You could be infecting people with a disease.
Lois, have you ever heard of con crud? If you couldn't tell from my voice and my voice in Padre Di Familia, I'm currently suffering from that. Oh my god, and I know what caused it. It was probably that puppet I hugged. That puppet.
Can I hug you?
Absolutely.
Hug you. Oh,
Nah, I'm kidding. It was so cute. I love that puppet. It was all a joke. Please don't harass the puppet. Just go follow him on Instagram. As expected, Meg comes down with the mumps. Somehow.
How is it she was never immunized?
Well, it was 1992, and I couldn't be bothered with anything that didn't involve Dan Cortez.
At least there's an explanation. Plus, Peter never got one. I mean, in today's society.
Well, I'd caution you that getting the mumps as an adult could result in serious complications. In some cases, the symptoms could spread to the glands.
Big deal, so I'll wear socks.
Yeah, he should have definitely gotten one, but I heard that's an explanation historians say why Edward VIII never had children. Kitty, what's the mumps? Well, Catherine, we had a vaccine for that. I mean, I think I got it. Not like I got the mumps, as in I got the vaccine. With Meg infected, the family makes fun of her, likely because they either got the shot for themselves and have that herd immunity, or they're dumber than I thought. Or they've had the mumps before, and they probably think, oh, I had to suffer, so you had to suffer too. Because Meg cannot leave her room, and this was before streaming and everybody likely having a TV in their room, unless the Griffins are just too poor or lazy to afford that, they give Meg one of those old TVs.
Here's your TV, Meg. It's a little old and there's no remote and it only gets one channel and it's not on that channel right now.
Yeah, I would rather just read or listen to music or something. I'm not watching that. After Peter leaves, Meg gets the TV to work, and the only channel she gets is Kirk Cameron, talking about religion.
Up next, Kirk Cameron.
Ooh.
To talk about God.
Ow.
Wait, people like Kirk Cameron for reasons besides religion? Wow, maybe I'm not old. However, Kirk doesn't do it in a not fun way that even secular people can't enjoy, like in VeggieTales. Kirk Cameron just talks about God for an hour like he's talking to a mirror, and he's able to appeal to Meg by knowing what makes her tick.
Even in the worst of times.
No thanks.
But first, are you lonely, unappreciated, not totally happy with your physical appearance?
Go on.
Now, I think an episode about Meg being a Christian is a cool idea. Like the Cleveland show said, there's many reasons why people believe in God, and reasons why others don't. And both groups are valid. So long as you aren't making fun of their beliefs, or their beliefs aren't harming anybody, they have their reasons and you have yours. So you should respect that universally.
Han Solo didn't believe in the Force, but he didn't think Luke Skywalker was an idiot for believing in it.
But the Force...
An unseen presence from which one draws strength and inspiration.
Plus, as Kirk Cameron says, Meg is an outcast, and people like her believe for a reason, which could be a bad thing because Meg could be easily led astray by somebody who seems to have all the answers, like a cult leader. But for most people, it's okay to have beliefs. Don't worry, it gets worse.
Your mother made soup for you. Here you go, honey.
Well, you know who does love you? The Lord.
Here's your milk.
You know, speaking of, this is one idea I had for the episode, or a future episode, and I'm surprised they didn't have Meg have these religious visions like Julian of Norwich. Just considering the episode and the topic, like maybe Meg has a vision of God telling her something, or a prophecy, and it inspires her to become a Christian, or enforce her will on others. You could have the characters wonder if Meg really did have those visions, especially considering this world, or if she was just hallucinating because she had a fever or whatever. Or maybe she was hallucinating, but there is a shred of truth to it, I don't know. Speaking of, I could totally see The Simpsons doing an episode like this. On the bright side, we get what this episode probably should have been about. Upset that he couldn't ask his questions, Stewie has made a transporter to bring the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation to his room. That way, they can answer all of his questions, but it's a long ways off.
All right, you girls ready? What's going on? Don't you laugh at it!
Just to get it out of the way, have you ever been asked the question, what's an episode where you prefer the subplot to the main plot? Well, next to the episode where Peter and Chris start to sneak into hotels to try the free breakfast, this is probably mine. I like the con jokes, what would me being on the convention circuit and all, and I like the idea of meeting your favorite celebrities, outside of just walking up to their table, saying hello, and then taking a selfie and going. Perhaps Stewie could try holding another con or something like that, and he tries to get the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation to show up as guests, only they're more annoying than they're worth. Oh crud, I just realized I basically wrote that Big Bang Theory episode with James Earl Jones, but it's still a good subplot nonetheless. The next morning, Meg gets better and has become a born-again Christian.
That's right, folks, it's gonna be a Meg episode. Stick around for the fun. There's the clicker. No one would blame you.
I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb.
Ew, you bathe in blood like Elizabeth Bathory? One of those two? Sorry, I have always wanted to make that joke. Meg decides to spread Christianity around, starting with her family, by saying grace while they eat.
Everyone hold hands, because we're gonna say grace before we eat. Dad, would you like to do the honors?
Are you kidding? I'd love a chance to shine. All right, Peter, this is it.
And if you don't want to join hands like I did as a kid, kids are gross and so are their parents, just do what young Sheldon did and wear mittens.
I tried left, up, B, dodge, uppercut, but he still knocks me out. And you know, they say you're supposed to go right, B, up, dodge, left, uppercut.
Oh god, I wish I had that hack. Stewie finally gets his transporter to work, and he gets the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation into his bedroom.
What's it like on the set?
The show's been off the air for 15 years.
Although I will say it was an awful lot of fun. You know, when Patrick wasn't hogging the limelight.
Oh, you, Michael.
Wow, you're taking this really well. Maybe they're just used to sci-fi stuff because of the show they're in, or Stewie isn't the craziest fan they've encountered. You know what, considering how the Star Trek fandom can be, I'd believe either or. But what I can't believe is how Stewie got CIA Deputy Director Bullock to go into his room. I wonder what he would say about Brian.
I've transported you all here against your will. I'm a huge fan, and you're going to answer all my questions.
But you're a baby.
Yes, that's right, Denise Crosby.
So apparently in real life, Denise Crosby and Seth MacFarlane are cousins, like distant cousins. They probably don't share any actual blood, but they are cousins if we're being technical. I wonder if they knew that going in or found out years later, because I could totally see that as the reason why she was the sacrifice character. Unless maybe she's just not as popular as the other stars. Honestly, I know nothing about Star Trek, so I can't, say anything. Seeing what Stewie is capable of, they agree to spend the day together.
Hey, that sounds like fun! Ow!
Shut up, Will.
Stop it, Patrick!
You know, I think you should all be nicer to Will Wheaton.
The way I treat my colleagues... Wait, what?
I'm tempted to do another Sheldon joke, what with Will Wheaton being in the episode. Later, Meg continues to push her beliefs on her family, this time by changing the channel. Not because she thinks what they're watching is smut, but because Kirk Cameron is on, which isn't fanatical, it's just a tad inconsiderate.
It's time for Kirk Cameron, and I think it's important for all of you to hear his inspiring message about the Word of God.
Again, Meg?
No, I find it weird that Meg is actually considerate of her family, as in the sense she wants to help them. Normally, whenever Meg has a phase, she tends to use it to either help herself or to get revenge on her family for how they treat her. Like in Dial Meg for Murder, she spent her whole fug phase getting revenge on the people who bully her, like Connie D'Amico, Peter, Brian. I figured this episode would be her using her faith as a coping mechanism, like responding to their taunts when, I don't care what you say, Jesus forgives you, or you'll be sorry when Judgment Day comes, or thinking her family are Satanists because of how they act or how they mistreat her, and acting accordingly. Just saying, they've done this in other shows. King of the Hill had an episode where Bobby became a born-again Christian, and Lucky made a good point. True, Bobby had good intentions trying to help people, but religion isn't going around forcibly converting people to your way of thinking. It's about being a good person. A truly good person.
Saving souls ain't your job. That position has been filled. In heaven by the big man, and on screen by Morgan Freeman.
But this is Family Guy Season 7, where they don't believe in subtlety. And this is when it happens.
Are you willing to open yourself up to God's truth?
Oh, you're barking up the wrong tree, Meg. I'm an atheist.
What's that?
I don't believe in God.
Okay, so we're talking about this. I've made it clear in past videos, especially my earlier ones, that one of my pet peeves about cartoons is I kind of hate when they do this, where they'll have religious figures or gods or stuff like that, and then have the characters joke or filibuster, oh, there is no God, and anybody who believes in one is an idiot. Like, outside of a joke. Disenchantment did it. The DC Extended Universe did it. Heck, I made that point with Rick and Morty. They've done it multiple times. But the later episodes, I guess, do kind of justify it as Rick is stubborn, and also maybe he doesn't know what to believe, and he could just make a device that defeats God. So to him, God isn't divine if he could just find a workaround. Heck, there was one episode where he and Morty discover a scientific kind of afterlife, and it's one of my favorites. I like the spin on it. South Park does something similar at times, but because it's mostly doing satire of real-life events, and because the existence of those figures is confined to the one town, I guess it's a bit more excusable. I could see the UN hearing the story of Saddam Hussein and Satan and thinking Bush is an idiot, whereas the South Park people just seeing it as a fact of life. Family Guy at first had pretty okay views on Christianity, like holy crap, or yes, they make Francis a religious nut and a cranky kook who thinks that Chris just taking a really big dump means that he's playing with himself.
You may think you're alone in there, but God's watching. Don't do it again.
God's watching me do number 2? Oh man, I'm a sinner and God's a pervert.
But they also had the Pope be a good-hearted person who told Peter that while the commandments say you're supposed to love your parents, you don't have to like them. So Peter didn't have to agree with his father or live the lifestyle he tried to force him into.
Dad, I'm gonna eat meat on Fridays, golf on Sundays, laugh at Jewish comedians, and yes, sleep with my Protestant wife. I won't enjoy it. And she hates it.
Heck, we had an episode where Peter angered God by having a cult that worshipped him, and God unleashed plagues that almost killed Chris as punishment.
Good, because this is starting to get really old.
Peter, the final plague is the death of the firstborn son.
Oh no, Stewie!
The firstborn son.
Meg! Your wife.
But Family Guy made fun of everybody, so kind of like South Park, it was alright. And when they needed to make a point, they made that point. So it was okay to laugh at the occasional joke, because the joke didn't seep into the message. Speaking of, Not All Dogs Go to Heaven aired in Season 7, and several episodes before, in this same season, we got I Dream of Jesus, where Brian outright met Jesus Christ himself, who proved to Brian he was Jesus Christ himself.
Hey, Jesus, can you do something for me?
Sure, Peter. What is it?
And yet Brian doesn't believe in God because why? And it wasn't like a one-time thing. He knew him for like a week. Like, wouldn't the existence of Jesus kind of confirm there is a God because in Christianity, he's the Son of God? Plus, if we're being technical here, both in airing order and production order, I Dream of Jesus, that came before Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. So you can't use the argument that I Dream of Jesus was written first and that's why Brian is acting this way. Like, Fox just aired it out of order and that's why he acts so differently. And honestly, that episode would probably benefit if I Dream of Jesus aired after Not All Dogs Go to Heaven, because you could argue Brian's beliefs were challenged.
All right, I'll be the one to say it. How do we know you're really Jesus? Can you perform miracles?
Sure. How about this?
But then we got this episode and one of Brian's most infamous traits, his atheism, and how he believes anybody else is an idiot. If it was ironic for him to be atheist, that would be one thing, but it's played dead straight. Look, maybe in our world there is a higher power, maybe there isn't, maybe it's something else entirely. We don't know that. But what we do know is that in this world, there is a God, Brian. What you're doing makes no sense from a world-building standpoint. Like, I've heard some people on TV Tropes comment, it's like the cartoon equivalent of saying the sky isn't blue. And that being the lesson of the episode with no hint of irony or anything. Brian tries to explain why he's an atheist, which, okay, let's see what he says.
Why, I just thought you knew. I mean, I'd never go to church. You know how I feel about that.
No, Brian, it's one thing to bash organized religion, but we believe in God in this house.
No offense, Brian, but not going to church doesn't correlate to religion. Sometimes it just shows how devoted you are. Sometimes it could just mean you have nowhere else to go or you're supporting a friend. Sometimes you think you just have to go and you don't listen.
I'm not a bad guy. I worked hard and I love my kids. So why should I spend half my Sunday hearing about how I'm going to hell?
You've got a point there.
Some Christians don't go to church every Sunday or every Saturday in some cases. Some only go on holidays. Some never go for whatever reason. Some go every day. That's all valid. Maybe you're a Christian, but you don't believe in organized beliefs. Or you don't have a church near you. Or you do, but maybe you disagree with the people there.
And don't you think that the Almighty has better things to worry about than where one little guy spends one measly hour of his week?
Or you work, or you can't physically leave the house or anything. Heck, Homer the Heretic gets a lot of criticism for how it portrays Homer's decision not to go to church anymore. But in a way, it was fine that Homer didn't go, besides there being a huge snowstorm. The problem was he used his newfound faith as an excuse to just laze around the house, be selfish, and do nothing. Heck, that episode even had this lesson when Homer's house ends up on fire because of him, and his friends have to save him. God didn't cause the fire, he was working through the hearts of his friends.
Nobody was working in the hearts of your friends and neighbors when they went to your aid, be they Christian, Jew, or miscellaneous.
Hindu.
You know what? I should review The Simpsons. Any episodes? But there is a reason why they did this episode in particular. Season 7 as a whole was kind of dedicated to being a mouthpiece for Seth's beliefs. 420 was about his view on legalizing marijuana. Family Gay was his viewpoint on gay marriage. And this episode is about his religious beliefs. Again, there's nothing wrong if they do an episode on atheism. I don't think it's hypocritical. Maybe they could explain how such a belief would work in this world. Or maybe somebody could be accused of atheism and they treat it like a bad thing. South Park did an episode on fanatical agnostics, and Matt and Trey are both agnostic.
These are your foster brothers and sisters. They are all strict agnostics. David, do you believe in God?
I don't know.
Right!
Heck, they also did an episode on atheism, and the whole idea was that the adults just stopped going to church because of the scandals. Yes, they said they were atheist, but the way it was presented, they didn't really mean it. They just meant it in the sense of not going to church. And as for atheism, they had a two-parter where the point was made that even if we gave up religion and everybody became atheists, we would still have wars and famine and violence, since people would still find stuff to argue about. Religion just gave them an excuse in that case. Plus, while the episode made fun of Richard Dawkins, he was still presented as a calm, collective, decent person in order to offset Mrs. Garrison. So it was a really good, perfectly balanced take, as all things should be. It just sucks they have Brian be the hero, and as a result, turn everybody else who disagrees with him into a villain, which doesn't work. Here's how it comes off. If you're not an atheist, it's saying you're an idiot. If you are an atheist, it's not funny, and it just makes you look like an ironically holier-than-thou jerk, and not in a tongue-in-cheek way like South Park, where they just take what your beliefs are and magnify them. Plus, that episode is helpful for me to explain my own beliefs to people.
We cannot know with certainty if God or Christ exists. They could. Then again, there could be a giant reptilian bird in charge of everything. Can we be certain there isn't? No, so it's pointless to talk about. Now say it with me.
So, let me ask you, which would you want to be associated with? Not all dogs go to heaven, or the poor kid? I mean, you probably shouldn't be associated with the Weatherheads anyway, you know what I mean. My point is, they're funnier. Brian continues to explain his viewpoints.
Get up, beast! I have dominion over you, and I command you to believe in God!
I'm sorry, I just don't see any evidence.
Excuse me? How do you not see any evidence?
Gotta be an explanation for all this.
You want an explanation?
God is pissed.
See, what the hell is wrong with you?
It's discovered untold wonders of a vast, unexplored universe, but not one picture of a guy with a beard sitting around on a cloud. I mean, what's he doing up there?
Well, Brian, if you had to study theology, like I had to for a semester, God is considered omnipotent, as in he's not like one being. So he wouldn't be a man on a cloud. Just, I guess, like an infinite being of pure energy whose will you have to interpret, that takes on multiple forms. Think like God from Supernatural.
What's the big deal about going to some building every Sunday? I mean, isn't God everywhere?
Amen, brother.
As for the evidence thing, I heard about it in the sense like God always sends evidence in the sense of, plus in order to ensure free will, God doesn't intervene. It's more like looking through a television screen. Sorry if this went on for a little bit. I went to a Catholic college for a year, and I found that interesting. Even if the professor said us girls shouldn't donate our eggs because we weren't going to take care of our children, went on rants about abortion, even if we were going to talk about how the church used to accept it and likely why, or that because I was an agnostic, I was confused and needed to pick a side. Yeah, I preferred Rutgers.
Oh, God's gonna get you with the Kodak disc. You're not gonna get anything for Christmas, Brian!
Well, God is gonna get you with the Kodak disc, Brian. Ooh, you will likely still get stuff for Christmas. Just saying, it's as much as a secular holiday as a Christian one. Oh my god, speaking of The Simpsons, I hated that episode where Lisa converted to Buddhism and Marge just froze away the Christmas cookies in front of her. No, lady, no. Stewie has started hanging out with the cast of Star Trek, but finds that this isn't a fan dream come true. Dreaming is better than having.
I want some McNuggets.
We'll get to you, Brent.
I want a hamburger. No, a cheeseburger. I want a hot dog. I want a milkshake.
You'll get nothing and like it.
Wow, DoorDash was a game changer. I wonder if Seth, like this happened to him and that led to the joke. I mean, the whole I did not care for the Godfather speech was based on a real chat that Seth had with the writers.
What time do they stop serving breakfast?
It's 3 o'clock.
Some of them serve breakfast all day.
No, serve breakfast all day!
They don't anymore, unfortunately. Meg tries to help Brian convert to Christianity by giving him a cross.
No, please don't do that.
You gonna get it, boy?
No, please, no.
Go get it, boy! Okay, give it back now.
This was one of the first Family Guy clips I saw. Not trying to make a joke, I just unlocked a core memory. Like the kids say. When that doesn't work, she gets Kirk Cameron to tell Brian about Christianity. Which, okay, you know what? I can get her reasoning. He converted her. Maybe she thinks he would crack a tough nut like Brian. Unfortunately, Kirk Cameron is not available to attend, what with being a big-name celebrity and all. So Meg got his TV brother from Growing Pains, who merely wants Sudafed.
I'll make it worth your while.
Ben!
Dad?
Ben! What have I told you about trading favors for Sudafed?
It's horrible how often I quote this and how I try to do the neck thing. Sudafed! Like, it's so weird in general. I don't like this episode, but it's still so easily quotable. Meg still persists.
I mean, the church makes me feel accepted and safe and part of something bigger than myself.
But Meg, you don't need an outside voice to feel those feelings. They're inside you.
Well, okay, yeah, that I get, and I think that would have been a good enough lesson. Again, remember Homer the heretic? But that episode also made the point it was okay to go to church or practice faith. All of Homer's friends had their own beliefs that didn't align with Christianity, and the episode said they were just as valid as Homer's.
Well, you should join my religion, Mo. It's great. No hell, no kneeling.
Sorry, Homer. I was born a snake handler and I'll die a snake handler.
Or maybe the episode could wonder if perhaps by using religion to deal with your own crushing insecurities, are you really being a good Christian? Or are you doing all of this just to feel good yourself? Because you can argue in a way that's selfish. But this could have been an okay ending. Like maybe Meg could compromise and rather than doing all of this, she could just go to church on Sunday or watch a live stream mass. Regardless, this whole interaction came way too early, and in a way I kind of disagree. For many people, church brings them a sense of longing because of the sense of community. Back in the day, all your friends would go to church, they would host events. Maybe it's not as prominent in many places nowadays because not as many people go to church anymore, but wouldn't there be like-minded people like Meg? People who feel like they don't belong, like they were thrown out by society, and they need a place to be? And wasn't that the plot of Chitty Chitty Death Bang? What if Meg got scammed by a Christian cult who took advantage of her new beliefs and her insecurities? And it was up to Brian to rescue her. And she won't listen because, according to the cult, he's a lying atheist. Think about that, that'd be cool. Instead, we got the episode in a different direction. Brian refuses to believe because, okay, that is his right. He doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. So Meg goes to the news and tells them that Brian is an atheist.
Our top story tonight, just when you thought the world couldn't be any more dangerous, Channel 5 News has discovered that there is an atheist among us.
Okay, so is Kevin Bacon and Adam Carolla. No, don't get me wrong. I can get Mayor West doing something crazy against Brian. He's Mayor West. Maybe he does think atheists are like monsters.
I'd rather have a terrorist living in our midst. At least they believe in a god, even if it's a smelly brown god.
But the whole of Quahog hates him. He ends up becoming public enemy #1, all because he's an atheist.
Well, this is nothing. Probably just a random act of violence. I thought only he without sin could cast the first Prius.
Yeah, not subtle, guys. Again, that just feels weird. You have the news right there. They don't prey on atheist stereotypes or anything, or make it out like Brian is gonna attack a church or harm people because of his beliefs. They just say, oh yeah, he's an atheist, guys. That's it. Also, there was a traffic incident, but yeah, atheist. Wow, y'all really doxed him. In town, nobody treats Brian with any compassion or mercy.
I tried to rent a movie, and they threw me out. I tried to buy a pack of cigarettes, and they threw me out.
Well, if you ask me, I think laying off the sauce could do you some good.
And the worst is, he can't buy a drink anywhere, as in liquor, although he probably couldn't buy water or soda either. Which feels a little ironic. You'd think they would try hard to convert him like Meg. Like if he goes to the store to buy E-Weekly, they give him a Bible. Or if he goes to the liquor store to get some vodka, they give him tap water. It almost makes Meg's attempts seem kinda tame, but Brian is suffering from alcohol withdrawal and it isn't pretty.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, you big silly ass. Just wrap your lips around me and take a big gulp.
Isn't that Jasper? Elsewhere, Stewie tries to bowl with the cast, but they continue to annoy the ever-loving piss out of him.
How do you want to do the teams?
How about the white guys against the black guys?
Patrick, don't be an instigator.
I have to pee.
Brent, take Michael to the bathroom, please.
Okay.
Sorry, I know no good Star Trek jokes because, again, I honestly know nothing about this franchise. And everything I do know was either from nerd osmosis or cons. The only thing I do know is that MLK was a huge fan of the OG series, and he convinced Nichelle Nichols to stay on the show because she was an inspiration for African American viewers, as the show aired during the Civil Rights Movement. And I only know that because I took a class on sci-fi and how it's used to portray real-world events, and how the professor said Star Trek was one of those examples.
I don't have my shoes either.
What the hell? You need your shoes to bowl!
Now, why exactly can I not wear my loafers? What is the danger there?
Because, Patrick.
How would they know? Are there, like, sensors or something? Sorry, I'm genuinely curious. Seems like something Bullock would do. And again, this just seems like it really should have been the episode. It's hilarious, and could you imagine the other Griffins interacting with the cast? That would be hilarious. To get alcohol, Brian pretends to be Christian, and says he saw the light.
I've seen the light.
Really?
Yes, hallelujah, I believe in God. Lordy, lordy, I believe.
Oh, Brian, that's fantastic news!
She changed how he's thinking, 'cause he was blind, but now he sees the way. Salvation is his. Which, now I'm just realizing they never use any specific branch of Christianity for this episode, just Christianity in general. I'm guessing they were doing it to make it more applicable, but it just feels weird. Or maybe they were afraid of rehashing Francis, so that's why Meg did not become a Catholic, but yeah, that's weird. Meg says he wants to spread the word around town and go to the liquor store. Meg agrees, but first they have a few errands to take care of.
Say, maybe down at the liquor store, maybe down at the Clam.
Of course, Brian, but first we have work to do.
Wait, is Brian gonna get baptized or something? Oh, like Chucky?
Red wine, like Jesus drank.
Do you like the wine?
Very much. What is it?
Take a guess.
I have to leave.
So, fun fact, that really was wine. I know some people say stuff like, oh no, it was a different translation. They really meant grape juice. But it's actually wine. Back then, wine was super hygienic, especially compared to water, because it was made from fermented grapes, hence it being such a great miracle. Besides, it was a party. Wouldn't there be wine instead of grape juice? Just saying, apparently a few sects of Christianity say this, so I'm surprised Meg didn't bring it up. But this episode is lacking somebody, an important character. Jesus Christ, I can't figure out who it is. I know. Look, it just feels so weird they never reconciled that idea. How do you have Brian be an atheist and yet have Jesus appear multiple times? Something I did like about Family Guy was how they got Jesus to set Peter straight, and he made the joke that,
Then Jesus, which religion should our family be?
601, they're all complete crap.
Thank you.
Brian, no. But it was cool because, like Jesus pointed out, he might be the face of Christianity, but he was still a Jew in life. So it makes no sense to be a Christian and be anti-Semitic. Even one of the most iconic pieces of Christianity, the Last Supper, was a Passover Seder.
And if I'm not mistaken, Islam is also in that same spiritual family.
Let's not muddy things up here.
I really wish they featured Jesus in this episode, if even for a second. Like, perhaps Meg spends the whole episode for God to send Brian a sign, and Jesus appears at the end to tell both of them what to do. Meg shouldn't let religion run her life and try to control other people, but Brian shouldn't stick his nose up if somebody has different beliefs, or if he wanted to wait for Meg to figure it out herself before he appeared. Or perhaps Jesus was on vacation or busy, hence why he couldn't show up. But no, trust me, the ending is so much worse. Meg buys Brian some alcohol for his troubles and then takes him to a book burning. Wait, what?
Now, we get to do the work of the Lord. Come on!
What are we doing?
God's will, Brian.
Which, wow, how did Meg go from just saying grace at breakfast to book burnings? When was Kirk Cameron, saying to do that? It just felt like a huge leap for both her and the episode. We needed this last point, so, ugh. Did turning Brian into a persona non grata rile her up or something? Or make her think she should be doing more? I don't know, it's weird.
Grab an armful! We have to destroy everything that's harmful to God.
Yeah, not subtle, guys. Brian says that Meg shouldn't do this, which, yes, he's right about, the book burning, I mean, but...
What are you talking about? I thought you'd seen the light, Brian!
Well, to be honest, I lied for booze.
I got you, you snake in the grass. Meg refuses to listen, so Brian pulls out the worst speech ever in evidence as to why God doesn't exist, which makes no sense.
Okay, fine. Then let me just ask you this. If there were a God, would he have put you here on Earth with a flat chest and a fat...
Ew, Brian, that's a pretty dim view. Honestly, I don't think Meg looks terrible at all. And that's not me being me. Most people agree. Meg looks pretty much like a slightly chunkier version of Lois with glasses. And we've seen that she's just a plain Jane who doesn't put any thought into her appearance. If she wore something more flattering, she probably would be better looking or get more attention. So your whole argument doesn't work. And besides, that's not evidence for why there isn't a God. That's just you being a D-word.
Well...
And what kind of God would put you in a house where no one respects or cares about you, not even enough to get you a damn mumps shot?
Did you respect or care about her when she had the mumps, or were you off drinking? Now, another reason this doesn't work is that Brian's reasons for God not existing are all super shallow, like a puddle. At least the science argument makes sense, like how would you reconcile that with a God? It just feels like he's trying to insult Meg and using religion to do it. Like the episode should have been on how Meg's behavior is towards using religion, not the religion itself. All of Meg's actions in this episode stemmed from religion, but there was nothing in said religion telling Meg to do it. And yes, Kirk Cameron has his detractors in real life, but this time around, he didn't say something like, oh, you have to convert all your friends and family, or they'll burn in hell, oddly enough. Or you have to burn anything that's harmful to God, or your eyes will melt or something. And Meg only tried to save Brian because he was an atheist. Heck, she was gonna try something similar with Lois until she learned Brian had no beliefs, which made him a more pressing cause.
You know, I think it's wonderful you found something to have faith in, but there's such a thing as moderation.
Ugh, Mom, you sound like a non-believer.
Instead, Brian should have said, would God really want you to bring pain to me? How would isolating me make me see the light? How is that being a good Christian? Wouldn't he want you teaching children how to read books rather than burning them? Wouldn't he want you to help families like yours, families in need, rather than those jerks who didn't give you a mum shot? That's what made Holy Crap such a great episode. And I'm sorry, whenever I review Family Guy, I always go back to it, but I love how great it is. It only insulted the extremes of Christianity, like most shows do. And most Christians and non-Christians would agree that Francis is the worst example of a Christian. Even the Pope, the head of the religion, was furious with him and complimented Peter on his patience on dealing with his father. I mean, would you want to be around Francis if you were Christian and you were not related to him?
It occurred to me that I may never see any of your faces again. Jesus loves you. But in my eyes, you're a bunch of sinners and slackers who have forced a hard-working old man to retire.
But somehow, I guess because Meg's religious beliefs were rooted in her insecurities, she easily believes Brian.
Oh no. You're right, Brian. You're right.
I'm sorry, Meg.
Again, is there a commentary here? But Brian doesn't care that he might be giving this kid an existential crisis. Oh my god, Brian ruins Meg. Would dial Meg for murder, the lightning rod thing, really, he's the worst to this person.
Well, that's all part of the human experience. And I bet you that the real answer to the nature of our existence is going to be more unimaginably amazing than we can possibly conceive.
There is no human existence because you know the human existence, because you know why you're there, Brian, because there is a God in this world and your beliefs make no sense and they're garbage. Oh my god, I hate you so much. You make my head hurt. Brian, you make my eyeball do that frob thing. Actually, it's been doing that for a week and I don't know why. But we're not done. Stewie hates hanging out with the cast of Star Trek and the feeling is likely mutual, so he sends them home.
For the fuzzy troll pencil topper.
Oh yeah? You gonna share that?
Yeah, we were gonna share it.
Really? How's that gonna work?
3 days at my house, 3 days at Lavar's, and alternating Sundays.
That actually sounds pretty fun, and that should be an episode. I think Foster's did something similar with Eduardo and the stuffed animal they won at the arcade. Imagine the Family Guy version, or American Dad, Bullock raising that pencil topper like he does with his sometime son AJ. Stewie sends them home. Oh, and the Family Guy world is really an atom on a lamp. Sorry, I forgot to specify. God forbid I forget stuff.
Rob, did Did you hear that?
So, this episode, honestly looking back, it's a mixed bag. On the one end, I hate the A-plot, but I love the subplot. And I think that's a pretty common consensus. Because, let's start with the A-plot. To be fair, I do see what they're trying to do, and I feel like the atheist thing makes no sense. But couldn't they hand-wave it in a comical way? And on the other end, I feel like there were 10 million things they could have done besides Meg bullying Brian. Perhaps they could have had Meg force her beliefs on the rest of the family, or become a Christian nationalist. Heck, they had a pretty good lesson near the beginning they should have stuck towards.
Again, Meg? You know, I think it's wonderful you found something to have faith in, but there's such a thing as moderation.
Which just feels weird they did that whole atheist rant at the end. It made the episode seem super inconsistent. Like, yes, be moderate with your beliefs, but also don't believe in them too hard, because if you're ugly and have a bad life, clearly there isn't a god. Brian doesn't even explain himself as that's why he doesn't believe. Like, I don't believe why a god would bring all this suffering into the world. But it's no reason Meg shouldn't believe, just how she should conduct herself. For the B-plot, I guess my only complaint is how short it is, and maybe the voice acting for some of the Star Trek people. Like, you can tell they were not used to voicing people, so it comes off like they're just reading off a script. But for quick guest stars, they were alright. Regardless, I think it's pretty easy to hate this episode regardless of what side you're on. And weirdly, I'm surprised they didn't do more with Kirk Cameron. Or his sister. Is it bad I didn't know that was his sister? I thought that was his wife. Anyhow, bye!
This was exhausting. This whole experience was absolutely exhausting. That's it. Goodbye.